I was carrying a tray of silverware when my daughter-in-law said in front of every guest at the table, "You weren't invited, Margaret." Before the story continues, if you enjoy stories like this, please hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Now, back to the night that changed everything. My name is Margaret Hall, I'm 63 years old and I've lived in this house on the edge of Portland for almost 30 years. After my husband Robert passed, I painted the kitchen a warm honey yellow. It was the only colour that still felt like home when everything else turned cold. I thought that yellow would stay forever. That night, I learned a house can forget who built it. The smell of roast chicken drifted through the dining room, mixed with laughter and the clink of wine glasses. It was my son Daniel's 34th birthday. He looked handsome under the light of a new chandelier his wife Vanessa had ordered online without asking me. She stood at the head of the table, wearing her polished hostess smile. I was carrying a tray of silverware, just trying to help the caterer. That's when Vanessa turned toward me, her voice calm and loud enough for the whole room to hear. "You weren't invited, Margaret." For a second, I thought I'd misheard. The tray trembled in my hands. The caterer froze mid-step. Daniel gripped his wineglass, but said nothing. I looked at the table. Oak wood I'd chosen 25 years ago, back when Daniel still ate cereal from a plastic bowl. Every plate, every folded napkin on that table had once been mine. "You weren't invited," she repeated softer this time, like she was explaining something to a child. The laughter in the room went flat. "Of course," I said, though my voice barely found air. "Wouldn't want to spoil the picture." I stepped back and watched Vanessa lean toward Daniel, whispering something I couldn't hear. I didn't ask. I just walked away past my husband's photograph, hanging crooked on the wall, past the kitchen that smelled like effort, but not love anymore. Outside on the porch, the air tasted like rain. I told myself it was just the weather, but part of me already knew something much bigger had shifted when Daniel first asked if he and Vanessa could stay with me for a few months. It hadn't sounded like a threat. They'd lost their apartment in Seattle after the rent climbed past what they could afford. I remember telling him, "Of course, honey, this is your home too." At first, it even felt good to have life in the house again. My grandson Oliver's tiny feet on the hardwood floors, cartoons playing too loud in the living room. I didn't notice the shift right away. It started small, the way most takeovers do. Vanessa asked if she could freshen up the guest room. 2 days later, the old floral curtains were gone, replaced by grey linen that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Then she replaced my dining chairs. "Too dated," she said, boxing them up for donation before I had time to react. One evening, I came home from the community centre to find my rocking chair missing. The walnut one Robert had sanded by hand himself. It had sat in that corner since before Daniel was born. I found it later shoved in the garage next to unopened Amazon boxes. Vanessa laughed it off. "Oh, that old thing didn't fit the vibe anymore." I said nothing. I told myself it was temporary, but temporary kept stretching like a rubber band tightening around my chest. Even the kitchen, once my refuge, started to change. Vanessa didn't like the honey yellow paint, said it clashed with her cookware. One afternoon, I caught her filming an Instagram video, calling my kitchen a fixer-upper. My neighbour Carol stopped by with an apple pie that same week, eyebrow raised. "You sure this is still your house, hun?" The final straw came a week before the birthday party. I walked into the living room, and there it was, a brand new chandelier hanging from the ceiling, glittering like something out of a hotel lobby. A delivery van still idled outside. "Surprise," Vanessa said, wiping dust from her hands. "Early gift for Daniel's party." "How much did that cost?" I asked, my stomach twisting. "Don't worry," she said lightly. Daniel used his card. That's when I realised it wasn't just my furniture disappearing. It was my voice in my own home, quietly peeled away piece by piece, replaced by her taste and my silence. That night, after the humiliation at the dinner table, I sat on the back porch, the only place that still felt like mine. Carol called over the fence. "You all right, Margaret?" "Just thinking," I said, forcing a smile. "Thinking's fine," she said. "Just don't let it turn into waiting." Her words landed like a stone in my chest. I didn't know it yet, but I was already waiting for the moment when pretending would no longer hold. And that moment was closer than I thought. The morning after the party, the house felt heavier. The dishes were washed, the decorations gone, but the silence lingered like smoke. I poured coffee. I into my favourite mug, the one Vanessa had hidden behind her new glassware, and sat at the kitchen table staring at the honey yellow wall she once called too cheerful. That's when I remembered Carol's words. Don't let it turn into waiting. By noon, I was sitting in a small law office downtown across from a woman named Diane Coleman, sharp-eyed, calm, the kind of person who didn't waste words. I told her everything. The months of small takeovers, the chandelier, the humiliation at dinner. She listened without interrupting, taking notes with a fountain pen. When I finished, she looked up. You have full ownership of the property, correct? Yes. The mortgage was paid off 8 years ago. Then you decide who stays under that roof, not them. It sounded so simple, but the weight of it made my throat tighten. I'd spent months trying to keep the peace. Peace had quietly turned into surrender. That evening, I typed up 3 rules myself. It felt strangely satisfying, like reclaiming a language I hadn't spoken in years. 1. Any changes to the house require my written approval. 2. No gatherings or parties without the homeowner present. 3. This house is not for sale or transfer without my consent. I printed them, signed my name, and taped the paper to the refrigerator. When Vanessa got home, her heels clicking on the tile, she stopped short in front of it. What is this house rules? I said evenly. Just so we're all clear, she laughed, more mocking than amused. Margaret, you don't need to make this so formal. We're family. Exactly, I said. And family respects boundaries. Daniel walked in, tired from work, scanning the list. Is this really necessary, Mom? After last night, long overdue. Vanessa crossed her arms. If this house makes you so unhappy, maybe we just buy it from you. It's old anyway. You could use the money. I met her eyes, steady and cold. This house isn't for sale. Not now, not ever. You're being unreasonable, she snapped. Maybe, I said. But I've earned that right. She turned and walked away without another word. That night, sitting in my restored rocking chair, I felt calm for the first time in months. Setting those rules hadn't just redrawn boundaries in the house, it had redrawn them inside me. But a quiet unease stirred beneath the peace. People like Vanessa don't surrender easily. I was right. It happened the following Thursday. I was at the community centre when my phone buzzed. Carol's name flashed on the screen. Margaret, she said, skipping any greeting. There's a strange car in your driveway. Some man in a blazer is walking around your yard with a clipboard. My stomach dropped. What kind of car? Silver SUV, says Highland Rally on the side. I didn't answer. I was already grabbing my keys. When I turned onto my street 15 minutes later, the front gate stood open. A man in a blazer was photographing my porch, while Vanessa pointed out details like she was leading a tour. Daniel's truck wasn't in the driveway. He was still at work. Can I help you? I called out. The man lowered his camera, startled. Oh, Mrs. Holt, right? Tom Reyes, Highland Rally, just taking preliminary photos for the listing. The listing, I repeated. And who exactly authorised that? Vanessa turned, her smile tight. I did. We're getting it appraised. Daniel and I talked about it. Interesting, I said. Because the last time I checked, my name is the only one on the deed. I pulled a folded copy of my title deed from my purse, the one Diane had insisted I always keep with me, and handed it to him. He scanned it, his face wreathing. Right, understood. I'll delete these photos immediately. He hurried to his car and drove off. I turned to Vanessa. You invited a realtor to my home without asking me. We were just trying to help, Margaret. This house is too big for you. You'd be more comfortable somewhere smaller. This is my home. You're standing in the way of our future, she said. I'm standing in my own living room. Just then, Daniel's truck pulled up. He climbed out confused. What's going on? Your wife invited a realtor to sell my house, I said. His shoulders sank. Vanessa, tell me that's not true. She's being unreasonable, Vanessa shot back. This place could sell for $600,000. We could pay off your car debt. Debt? I turned to Daniel. What debt? He rubbed his forehead. The furniture, the chandelier. She wanted. Stop, I said quietly. You used your car to furnish a house you don't own. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. I just wanted her to be happy. Something in me broke and settled all at once. Then maybe she should find happiness somewhere else. That evening, Diane sent over a legal 30-day notice to vacate. Daniel accepted it without a word. Vanessa crumpled her copy and stormed off. As the house went quiet again, I sat in my rocking chair, hands trembling, not from fear, but from release. 3 weeks later, the moving truck pulled away for good. I sat on the porch with my coffee, watching the tire tracks fade in the dust. For the first time in a long time, the house felt like it was breathing again. 2 months passed before I saw them again. Early autumn, leaves turning red when I heard a knock at the door. Daniel stood there holding Oliver in one arm. "She left," he said quietly. "Filed for separation, moved back to her mother's." I looked at Oliver, clutching his toy truck. "You both okay?" "Trying to be. I could use some help with him while I work." I stepped aside. "Then let's set some ground rules." He almost smiled through the guilt. "Rules. 3 afternoons a week. I'll watch him here. You pick him up by 7. No staying over unless you call first. Understood?" "Understood." That evening, as the last light stretched across the honey yellow walls, I hung my husband's photograph back above the fireplace, straight this time. The rocking chair creaked beneath me, steady and familiar. Forgiveness, I realised, isn't forgetting. It's setting rules so love can exist without bruising. If this story moved you, let me know in the comments. Would you have done the same thing? Don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next